So I was first introduced to Hall about 4 years ago. I had just moved back to the Bay Area with my wife, and we drove up to Napa. It was our first time up to Napa. We had never been there. Completely clueless as to where to go, just kind of winging it. But I think like most novice wine drinkers, we just knew we liked reds, and we liked big reds. And so we were driving down St. Helena, and we saw the sign. Was it Crazy Good Cabs? And we're like, okay, why not? So we pulled in, and we were blown away, not just by the wine, but by the facility. Everyone there was so kind and nice to us. And we signed up as members, and that was about 4 years ago. And we've been members since, and that's kind of what turned us on to wine. So we make a trip up to Napa maybe on a monthly basis these days. And so it's actually had a pretty big impact on our lives. So I am very happy to have you guys here. And thank you, David, for this opportunity. So I'd just like to introduce our guests for today. So Kathryn Hall is a co-proprietor of Hall Wines and Walt Wines, along with her husband, Craig, and their 4 children. Kathryn has been involved in the California wine industry since her family first purchased a winery 30 years ago. She has had a distinguished career as a successful businesswoman, community activist, and as the United States ambassador to Austria. So all this you can read in her book. And also joining us today is her daughter, Jennifer Brown. So Jennifer is the Hall and Walt Partner Brand Ambassador, representing the winery nationally at tasting and educational events like the one we are hosting here today. She graduated from Northwestern University and received her JD and MBA from Stanford. Very impressive. We are hiring, by the way.
Oh, no.
So Kathryn, at Google, we pride ourselves on having a very diverse workforce. We believe diversity contributes to a more collaborative environment, which eventually leads to more innovative products that address the needs of like broad audiences. Kathryn, your background is quite diverse, from lawyer to mayoral candidate to ambassador to Austria. How have your experiences outside of the wine industry influenced you?
In many ways. First of all, Daniel, thank you so much for having us here. Jennifer and I have been really excited to see you all, to see you all Googlers. Thank you for having us, and thanks for coming. So I totally agree that diversity leads to creativity and sort of a depth of experience, that sort of tapestry that comes forward in so many ways in your life. So I always knew I was going to come back to this business eventually. I mean, I loved my happiest memories as a kid were watching my dad grow grapes, farm grapes, and so I just knew I'd come back. I just didn't know quite how long it would take. But in terms of sort of experiences, I'd say as a lawyer, you have to learn. I mean, there's so many experiences from everything, right? But yeah. I think as a lawyer, you learn to speak and therefore to think precisely and to communicate in that way. I think as a candidate for office, and actually I ran twice.
Oh, wow.
And lost twice. And so the biggest lesson from that, I think, was dealing with failure, which I think really speaks a lot to the Google community too. You know, I mean, I think if you don't take risk and you don't fail, then you're not going to grow. I mean, nobody wants to fail, but you do. I mean, that's just the other side of risk. And the other side of that too, I mean, it's risk, it's failure, and it's creativity. And they all sort of work together. And so I think that has been a really important part for me. The other thing is too, I think, is when you fail and you get up again, that gives you a confidence that you can't learn, I don't think, any other way, to know that you can come back and keep on going. So I think that all of those factors really come into who we are as a winery. I mean, there's many other things, and we're so much a team, but I think our DNA is so much about risk, failure, hopefully not too much of that, and creativity. Just keep on trying.
Beautiful, great. And so, Jennifer, question for you. So here at Google, we're constantly trying to shake the industry up in our space and everything we're involved in. Innovate or die, they say. So what is Hall doing to stay on the cutting edge of technology and innovation in the wine industry?
Sure, that's a good question. First of all, I think innovate or die is a really intense but awesome slogan. I like that. We're not quite that intense with the way we talk about it, but we do like to take risks, like my mom said, and I think risk-taking leads to creativity, and experimentation is a big part of our winemaking philosophy at the winery. Our winemakers all designate part of their time to doing experiments. Some really cool examples of them are, first of all, our winemaker Steve Levesque, our head winemaker and VP. He had this idea of toasting the stems of some of our Pinot grapes and putting those in the fermentation tank with the grapes. And some other wineries put stems in with the grapes to ferment, but no one else toasts them slowly like he did. And so it gives it a really nice sort of full-bodied sense of flavors, some like nice paprika, whereas if you don't toast them, which a lot of other wineries do, it's kind of more of a green quality that's can be a little bit risky in the winemaking process. So the fact that he experimented with that and it worked out really well, we were super excited about that. And then another example of an experiment is, so we work with a vineyard in the Santa Rita Hills area, which is by Santa Barbara. And the wine that we make from there has a really nice perfume quality to it. And our winemakers had an idea, like, does this perfume quality come from the soil or does it come from the grapes or something else? So they actually took the soil from the Santa Rita Hills vineyard and threw it into an experimentation tank. Don't worry, you're not drinking dirt right now. Into an experimentation tank with some of our Pinot grapes. And it did impart that perfume quality. So because of that experiment, they learned the soil had a huge part of that quality of the grape. So we just think that these experiments that they're doing are constantly making us better for our wines. So that's part of our innovation. When we think about technology, we're always trying to get the best, new, most cutting-edge technology at the property. We go around the world and other wineries and talk to UC Davis, which has a wonderful winemaking program, and learn about what the greatest new technologies are. We have an optical sorter, if you've heard of that. It's
during one of our visits, actually one of the most memorable things was one of your employees was telling me about this, and I was like blown away. Like, actually scans, takes an X-ray of each grape, and for the grapes that aren't up to par, it like blows them away. And I was like, no way, you're kidding me.
No, it is. Yeah. It's pretty amazing. Yeah, you basically choose which grapes that you think are the best, and then you train it to match those kinds of grapes, and then exactly blows away with air the ones that don't match it. And it's so much more precise than humans can be. So it's actually made our winemaking better and our wine quality better. I think we do other innovative and technologically advanced things in our marketing department, which my mom can speak to better, but that's what we do at the winery in production.
Yeah, and I also have to say, you guys have an amazing website. It's really good. Just like,
thank you.
Yeah, very polished.
Ooh,
I think you guys should check it out.
Yes. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
The buying flows, purchasing, all of that, the cool little animations. It's a really good job there as well.
Hallwines.com.
Yeah, or waltwines.com.
Or waltwines.
Thank you, Daniel.
So another question for you, Jennifer. So you have 3 sites now: Rutherford, St. Helena, Walt. They all have their own special character and uniqueness. Could you, for those of us that might not get the chance to visit, could you tell us something special about each?
Sure. So, they are all different, but each one of them carries, I think, a sort of a similarity, which is they all have really great wine, and they all have an art collection woven throughout the property. Our family is really interested in art in lots of forms. And then they also reflect the neighborhood that they're in. So our Rutherford property is up on the hill. Have you been to the Rutherford property? Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a very special, small property. It's built right by our family's home on the hillside. And it has these caves that were built with Austrian Habsburg dynasty bricks. And then at the end of the cave, as you know, there's this chandelier room, which has this beautiful piece of art that's a chandelier that looks like sort of the roots of a tree with Swarovski crystals that are lit up. It's quite magnificent if you get to see it in person, and we'd love for you all to come visit. But we do tastings underneath the chandelier, and we also do private events. I got married a few months ago, and my rehearsal dinner was there. It's just a really special, intimate feel, and it has more of an old world feel. And then on the flip side, I'd say our St. Helena property has more of a New World feel. So it's big, modern. We say that we have something there for everyone, whether you want to come with your dog and taste wine outside or just get bottle service. We actually don't make anyone have to sit through a tasting if you think that's boring. You can just order a bottle and you don't even have to listen to what we have to say about it, although we would talk your ear off if you want us to. And we have beautiful art throughout that property as well. And then our third property is Walt, which is on the Sonoma Plaza. And it's totally different. We like to say that it has the warmth of a home, but the sophistication of an art gallery. So you very much feel at home. It's very cozy, charming, more in tune with Sonoma properties, but it's still very beautiful. And we have wonderful wine educators at every property too.
Yeah. So throughout your book, and we kind of touched on this earlier, you talk about the numerous challenges you faced in building Hall. For example, early on, losing the 2,000 plus cases in the fire, and that was in your early days, right? And then the difficulties in like financing the operation during the 08-09 economic crisis, and then 2010 was interesting, which was, I believe, a tough year for the industry as a whole in terms of the weather conditions, but you guys somehow were able to turn out a 100-point wine, out of what you grew that year. So, you seem to have a history of taking these like adverse situations and navigating them through to your advantage and kind of flipping them on their side. So, how have some of these losses and struggles shaped what Hall is today?
I'll give you an example of the crop. You mentioned 2010, but so 2011 was also a very it was a difficult year, and it was it looked sort of mediocre. And then when we got down to harvest, we thought our grapes weren't ripe enough, so we kept them on the vine. That's part of the risk thing. We kept them on a little longer, and while they were hanging out there, there was a torrential rain. And so, which was disaster. And so the vines developed to rot. And then the question is, how do you sort out the bad berries from the good berries, right? So as in general, the people who took the risk, what happened to 2011 in general was wines either tended to be too green and were scored very low and weren't enjoyed that much by the public, or they stayed on too long and they had a lot of rot and they weren't great. And so our team figured out, and this comes back to that sort of, deal with it, figure it out, think about it, take a chance, And so they figured out that that the rot was really at the stem, where the stem attaches the berry to the right at that little juncture between the stem and the berry. So they figured out if they could shake the vine, not too hard, but the bad grapes would fall off and the good grapes would stay. So we went around literally every vineyard and we shook every vine, and we ended up with some really nice wines and got some great scores that year in 2011.
So that was 11.
10 we did well too, but 11 in a way was neater because it was a very high risk, But you just, I think if you live and work in a climate where the idea is just figure it out, think about it. Give it some thought. And by the way, you make a mistake, it's okay. Your job's not going anywhere. You just try it. And so I think our team, they did a fabulous job that year, and we ended up with some pretty cool wines.
Yeah, awesome. Yes,
Yeah.
I can attest to that. So you now have 2, potentially 3 100-point wines, the 2010 Excellence, the 2013 Rainin, and then, fingers crossed, the 2013 Kathryn Hall, which we're pouring here today. Mm-hmm. And all that has been in a span of about 2 years or so. So does it get easier, or is the bar kind of raised every time?
Yeah. Well, it doesn't get easier, for sure. And actually, we talk about that in the book, because when we first I remember when we got our first score over 90, and it was 92 for one of our Cabernets several years ago, and it was like, it was amazing. Nobody could stop talking about it. It was so exciting. And now, I think every wine we're pouring today has got scores in the 90s somewhere, But, and I don't mean to demean that. We're really excited to have them, but it's not the same as it was when we got a 92 the first time. Right?
Yeah.
And so I guess in that sense, the bar does sort of go higher. But I think at the same time, if you ever set out to make a wine with the idea, I'm going to get a great score on this wine, then you are dead. Because a great wine has to be authentic. And so you've got to think about, what does that vineyard want to be? What's this vintage like? I mean, you don't want to manipulate a grape. Manipulate a wine. I think the great wines of the valley are not manipulated. They are, we have a winemaker here who I'm looking at right now, but great wines, they have a sense of who they are, just like, great people. There's this feeling of honesty, I think, that goes around with any wine. So you just have to you seek out that truth, and then you try to support it.
Awesome. So the guiding principle is never 100-point wine.
No, but hey, we do love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the other thing that happens, then when you start getting these wonderful scores, then more people want you to make wine from their vineyard. So it's this beautiful spiral, because now we have wonderful vineyard owners who are coming to us, who are, would you like to have my grapes? Because they have a lot of pride in what they do too. So they don't want to put a lot of pride into the wines that they grow, the grapes they grow, and have it made into sort of a crummy wine. So, we're really proud of Excellence. Comes from a vineyard in our backyard. And Rainin comes from one of our partners, and they are as excited as we are about it.
Yeah. So Jennifer, back to you. So Hall has a strong commitment to being green. You farm organically. You were, I think, the first winery in California to get LEED Gold. So why is this important to Hall, and how has it impacted the wine you produce?
Well, I think that for a family business, which we are, it often is a reflection of your family's principles. And one of our principles has always been our commitment to the environment. We're all very environmentally focused in our family. My mom drives an electric vehicle. My brother drives an electric vehicle. I would like to drive an electric vehicle. We actually have 2 electric vehicle parking spots at the winery. So if you drive a Tesla or any other kind.
I used one just a few weeks ago.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
My husband works for an environmental energy company. I think it's just a big part of our life. So we've been able to make that principle be part of the winery itself. So yeah, we're very proud of the Gold LEED certification, especially paving the way for wineries. And organic farming is really important to us. The thing about organic farming is it's not so much that it changes the wine, really, but it takes longer to do organic farming. And I think when you spend longer on something, not everything, but in farming in particular, in winemaking, it just makes the quality better. So they just have a higher attention to detail. It's much more high touch. And it's been nice because we didn't set out from a marketing perspective to be green. That's just who we are. And we've gotten a lot of recognition for that, which we've been really proud of.
Great.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that's something you'd ever sacrifice to reduce costs, or is that just kind of a core part of what Hall is?
No, we really feel like that's a core principle. Yeah. And we've been lucky that we've been able to keep doing that.
So Kathryn, I loved your chapter, Our Friends Can Only Buy So Much. And I think this one probably resonates with a lot of us here in the audience. So you talked about having to rely on, in the beginning, your circle of friends and family. And it's a struggle that we've all had, I think, or many of us at least. I've definitely had this struggle myself, or maybe when launching products at Google. So what was the hardest part about scaling from friends and family and going from a couple thousand cases a year to a couple thousand cases a month?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing about making any product is, it's got to be good. It's got to be relevant. It's got to be desirable. It has to be intrinsically good and valuable. And I think when you go to build it, you want to focus on building the brand, not building the sales numbers. I'm speaking from us anyway, in our industry. I think the idea is that, when you have a brand, that's your competitive edge. Nobody else can be you. Nobody else can be your product. And so that means you gotta know your product, you gotta know who you are, and then I think you have to really, you have to communicate directly about who you are. When you think about, the products that I think about when I go to buy my cold press carrot juice, right? I like knowing that there's a person behind that product that cares about health. When I buy products, I like knowing that those people care about the environment. I think there is increasingly this desire to shop with people who share your values. And so that means that you want to communicate who you are. And that's part of what your brand is. I mean, your brand is you. So it's like, this is who I am, like it or don't like it, but if you like it, this is me. And so you just sort of, and then I think that it helps you scale. I mean, but is it hard? I'll tell you, in my business too, when you start to scale, you've got to be prepared because at first we were going to be a 7,500 case winery. Now we're pushing towards 100,000 cases. 4 months of the year, I'm on American Airlines. It changes your life. So you've got to be prepared to make those changes and to jump when you have the opportunity. Hesitate, you're dead.
I think also in terms of scaling, what's been really helpful is just hiring amazing people.
Oh, hello. Thank you. Yes. That's the thing is, you can't scale without a team. And you can't build a business without a team. It's got to be. And we have just been so lucky with our team. We've hired, our first employee was this, we talk about this in the book too, this wonderful guy named Mike Reynolds, who was our first winemaker, now is our president. And the three of us have just been, he, Craig, and I. Jennifer's coming in now, but for many years it was the three of us, And so we share values. And Mike, to this day, anybody who's hired, and if you are working in the cellar, you're working in the hospitality, or you're working in any part of our operation, Mike interviews all of our employees to know that we are all sort of simpatico.
Yeah, that's interesting. We've all been through the interview process here, so I think we kind of can attest to that. It's not easy sometimes. So your Hall brand has received more than 261 scores of 90 points or above. That's a lot. Congratulations.
But who's counting?
And then your Walt brand, which is much smaller, 61 scores of 90 points or above. You basically went from 0 to 100 in less than 15 years. What do the next 10 years look like for you guys?
Well, hopefully they are full of lots of great wine and more consumers. I think this whole, our industry is going to change a whole lot. It's sort of, we put a lot of attention into hospitality. So when you tell your story that you came up and you happened to turn in and, got to know our wines and then joined the club, that's the perfect story. That's what we hope to have happen. And you only have a chance to introduce yourself one time to somebody, right? But there is a whole world out there that won't have the chance to drive up Highway 29 and do that. So we have to communicate with them directly in other ways. So we put a lot of attention, and we have from the beginning, into how do we market, how do we communicate virtually. How do we use social media, which is nothing, everybody in the whole world is using social media, but I can tell you it's not that common in our industry. Yeah. We're sort of behind it. So we pay a lot of attention to how we communicate. We will do that, and we will do it, and we'll continue to work through our website to try to enhance that relationship, I think, too. I think if I were a distributor, and that these are the sort of middlemen, there's several sort of middle people along the way in this industry, I'd be concerned about where the industry is taking me, because people, right now, we've only scratched the surface in terms of how people are buying wine. Most people still buy their wine walking into a store and buying it, or coming to a winery. But why wouldn't you buy wine online? When you buy everything else online, and wine is something that you can't taste, you can't smell, you can't feel it. There's nothing about it that's unusual. It's all reputation and brand. So I think the next 10 years we will see a huge change in our industry, and hopefully Hall and Walt will be at the forefront to try to communicate and deliver product in changing ways. And then one more thing I want to say on that is that we'll create new brands. So we will create a Zinfandel brand. We have a Pinot Noir brand and we have a Hall brand. But if we can do a Zinfandel, a high-quality Zinfandel can be made at a much lower cost than a high-quality Cabernet or Pinot Noir. And so then this gives us a chance to open up to another level of consumer who wants a fine wine but can't spend or doesn't want to spend as much money as they would on the other brands. So I think new brands will also help us. I think the idea of quality will be consistent. But if we can get more people into our sort of family, hopefully they'll have a Zinfandel, a Pinot Noir, and a Cabernet, you know?
Yeah. Seems like there'd be a challenge though. So for those of us that are familiar with your wines, we know exactly what we want to buy online. But like kind of how do you address the try before you buy for like new customers?
Right.
You know, other things you purchase online, it arrives, you try it on, you don't like it, free returns, all that stuff. Try something different, get your money back, whatever. How do you see that challenge?
Well, right now we have a policy of if something is wrong with the bottle, you can send it back to us, or we'll pick it up, or you just let us know and we'll credit your account. So that's for if a bottle is corked or there's something wrong. Now, if you just simply don't like it, honestly, if someone really didn't like it, if someone didn't like it, not really didn't like it, if someone didn't like it, we would make it up to them. The most important thing is our customer relationship. But have we figured out how to do that online? No, maybe we need some Googlers to help us with that, you know?
20% project? Anyone?
Yeah.
So last Saturday at your St. Helena winery, you hosted Harvest Hounds, an event where proceeds benefit the Napa Humane Society. So what are some other charitable events that the winery participates in throughout the valley or at the winery itself?
Sure, we really love participating in these and hosting these charity events. Harvest Hounds is a super fun event where everyone brings their dog, or one of my friends brought their cat once. You can bring any pet that you want, and then we have sort of like fun things like pet massages and other stuff for your animals. Also chip installation, I think, as well. And then you also get to taste wine, and it all benefits the charity. But our biggest charity event that we have every year is called the Cabernet Cook-Off. It's in April. I think this year it's on April 29th. And it's a really fun event. We've done it now for 8 years. We had 700 people come last year. And it's on our Great Lawn. And basically, chefs from around the Bay Area partner with a charity of their choice that's local. And then they create a dish to pair with our Cabernet. So this year they'll be creating a dish using some of our Napa Cab 2013, and then they'll be pairing it with the Napa Cab 2013. And then we have a panel of judges who have the most fun job ever of trying all the different food pairings. And then the winning charity, the winning team, and then that charity then gets the majority of the proceeds of the event. But then every charity that participates also goes home with a check. So we love that event. It's become a huge hit in the Valley. And if anyone wants to come, we'd love to have you. It's a really great time.
Cool. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Questions in the audience? I think we have a mic over here.
I was hoping you could talk a little bit more about the business aspect of the winery in terms of it's well known that it's hard to make money in the wine industry. So I wanted to hear from your perspective what it takes to be financially successful or profitable as a winery, and then maybe touch on how the economics of the winery have changed as you guys have expanded.
So I have to say that really hackneyed phrase that is used so often in the Valley, which is that's the way you make a small fortune in Napa is you start with a large one. But, your question goes, I think, to the core of why great wines will always be made by family-owned wineries. Because we have to be, in our case, we have to be profitable. But we don't have to report to a board of directors or to people who are looking at a 12-year return. We can look at a return on an investment that's 10 years out. And I think if you are building a great winery, which is we're trying to do, is you've got to look long range. I mean, it just there is so much. It's so capital intensive from the tanks that you ferment in, the oak barrels that you use. I mean, we committed from the outset that we were going to not cut corners when we were making our wines, and so. I guess in the sense, once you make that commitment, then it sort of becomes easy because you just say, okay, we're going for it. You have to be patient. You have to you have to look long term. So we're cash flowing. It's been a while, I mean, and we started in the business 20 years ago. I had no idea how you sold wine. I mean, a lot of that is what we talk about in the book. I mean, we just. I knew my dad was a grower, so I knew a bit about growing grapes. I knew a little bit about making wine, and I knew zero about how you sell a wine. And I mean, I didn't know who made the wine buying decisions in the store even. I mean, that's how far we had to go. So in 20 years, we made a lot of mistakes. But it was a long-term venture. And so I think what I would do if I were looking, and my guess is there are people in this room and who are watching this who might think that they might want to get in our business, right? And I think the first thing is to just know how much time you want to put into it, because as I said, it's a big jump. You make a couple hundred cases, that's one thing. You make 1,000 cases, nobody has that many friends, and But if you start, say, for example, as a grower, I mean, 95% of a wine is in the vineyard anyway. So then you're really involved in what's the core of what this whole industry is about. And then I think that's a great way to see if you enjoy the lifestyle. I mean, if you don't like the lifestyle, you don't want to be in this business. You can make so much more money someplace else for the time and effort that you put into it. But if you do, then it's just everything, because it's art, it's business, it's just, it's dynamic, it encompasses your world here at Google, more hopefully in the future. It's farming too, so it puts you in touch with what's real in life, the seasons of life, the sort of the humility of dealing year after year with Mother Nature. I mean, there is everything wonderful about this business, but if you don't love it, you don't want to be in it.
In your book, you mentioned that you were investing in some cool new technologies to make your wines even better. Could you give us a hint on what some of those might be?
I think, Jen, you mentioned the...
Did you hear me mention the optical sorter earlier?
Yes, super cool.
Okay, and that's a key. That really is key. That's really been, I think, a huge step forward in terms of quantity and quality. I think the tanks now the tanks that we use in St. Helena are much better to work with than the tanks that we have up in our first facility, which was in Rutherford. I mean, that's how the technology has changed. And what it's about precision. I mean, we can really control temperature better than we ever could, and temperature is such a key factor in winemaking. And we can control it, we can toggle it, we can just zero down. So it's just this sort of added degree of precision. Craig, my husband, and I were over at UC Davis about, 8 months ago, and looking at sort of this systems where we'll be able to monitor someday. I mean, hopefully not, I bet you not, everything seems to be exponentially happening, so it won't be that long, be able to monitor us vine by vine, from a desk away from the vineyard, where we can look at, sort of the water of that soil that's getting on that particular vine. I mean, that's going to give us a lot more control in the vineyard, where, as I said before, is just such a key part of it. And then the technology about how we communicate is huge. And so there it is. I mean, I think on communicating, it's just being open, having a great team. I mean, we are so lucky to have the team that we've got. Because the head of our marketing operation, for example, she worked in digital and in digital advertising for a while, but she said that she was never even thinking about working for a winery. She loves wine, and her husband is in our business. He's a somm, lives up in Napa Valley, but she never thought about working for a winery because she didn't think anybody sort of was into that, you know? And so then it was totally a wonderful marriage, you know, continues. But then she has brought in more and more people who love wine and who love working in that world. So I think that world, which is really your world, I think is going to continue to grow, and the frontiers are breathtakingly exciting.
Thank you.
It kind of goes to Melissa's question earlier. One of the keys for our success in terms of getting in the black from when we were in the red for a really long time was developing innovative marketing strategies. So even though it seems totally commonplace, a lot of the practices that we do with our e-commerce platform are very one of a kind in the wine business. Pretty much no one else does. I think we have one of the top individual wine online sales of any individual winery. So we just have a great team that obviously our scores have helped tremendously, and that's a big part of being a profitable winery, but using great technology and marketing strategies has been super helpful.
Of which Google is a big part.
Yes, thank you.
BTW. Yeah.
Could you elaborate on the importance of professional reviews and ratings on daily decisions of a winemaker? And is a perfect score your ultimate end goal? And what are the things you're unwilling to compromise on to achieve a higher score?
Love that. I'm going to take that.
Yeah.
You can do it. I love that question. No. You can't do a wine. You can't make decisions based on what a score is going to be. I mean, you just you lose your authenticity. You just you've got to be thinking all about that wine and that vineyard, what that grape can do, where it's going to go. You start thinking about a score, you've lost it. You just moved into this area of mediocrity, which hopefully we will never move to. So we don't make decisions that way. And the second question was, I think it was sort of this part of the same question, but anyway, the answer is,
the daily,
got it.
How does it impact the daily life of a winemaker, I think?
Yeah, well, it doesn't.
With real estate being so high in the entire state and being in Napa, where what's the square footage these days? We don't know, right? But you probably do. But you see these wineries now opening in an old transmission shop in like Oakland or up in Lompoc. They have a whole thing going on up there. How is this guerrilla type winemaking affecting people in a place that is traditional like Napa is? Seems as if you can buy grape juice, or grapes, I should say, wherever you want in the state, truck it to your facility and make great wine. Does it put you guys at a competitive disadvantage to be having everything in Napa where the real estate prices are so high?
I can take this.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, in general, we don't consider other Napa wineries to be our competitors. And I would say in the Bay Area either, we don't really consider them to be our competitors. We think of wines in other countries as being competitive to us. And even then, not so much, because we're actually competing against people that are drinking beer and other kinds of alcoholic beverages. The more people consume wine, the better it actually helps our winery. So we're really happy to see guerrilla winemaking operations popping up all over. And actually bringing that closer to people in the city is great from our perspective.
Yeah, I totally agree.
They're not competing with us directly. I think they're really just overall helping everyone. And yeah, a lot of people do just buy bulk wine, or they'll buy the grapes and press them themselves, or they'll get them custom crushed somewhere else. And I think, good for them. That's great. It does nothing but help us.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, just think about your own wine drinking behavior. I mean, I think the more wine you have, you try, the more wine you want to try. I mean, it just it just whets your appetite to know more about wine. So I think we are all benefited by having more wines. And in fact, in our Walt brand, a lot of our wines, our grapes, we do truck in. I mean, but we don't buy the juice though. I mean, we are hugely involved in the farming. When we first started out, my dad was a farmer, I was saying it earlier, So my thought at the beginning was we would own all of our own vineyards and we would, make the wines because we could control it. And my husband also calls me a control freak. I just think we really, but the fact is that there are so many wonderful vineyards out there that we would never have that grows grapes to which we would never have access. So we find that we are now, particularly for Walt, but also for Hall, buying grapes from other grape vineyards. And so the idea of Walt is we have one of the most famous vineyards in Oregon is Dick Shea's vineyard, Shea Pinot Noir. I'm seeing nods. So this is such a good wine group. And so we buy grapes from Dick. And we pick them at night and we truck them down and then we make the wine up. So if you're going to make really quality wine, it's very expensive to do, but we like it, and luckily so the people who buy the wine. So we do that too. We don't buy the juice, but we buy grapes from other vineyards that we will truck in.
I guess maybe that Napa, it's also a destination. Long Hope or someone's transmission shop may not.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Well,
No, it's true. I think people will come, you'll have a different experience trying a wine on our property than you will in your own home. I think your environment hugely affects your enjoyment of the wine. But yeah, no, I think people will try our wine for the first time in a restaurant in New York, but then, come out to the property and like it from a different perspective.
I want to say something on, you used the word tradition, which is such a critical part of this industry. So one of our phrases, we've got a bunch of internal phrases like you have, what was it, something or die, innovate or die, right? Okay. Now, one of ours is where tradition meets innovation. And so winemaking has fabulous traditions associated with it, and they are tried and true, and they've been around for many, many, many years. But innovation allows us to refine on that. So the idea, I think, of the winery of the future, and this goes actually back to one of the questions that you were saying earlier, Daniel, was, or your comments was, what's the future for us? And I think part of the future is to take advantage of the innovation that technology has afforded us and will continue to afford us, but not to lose the great parts about tradition. So it's this really, it's a lovely blend, and I would like to never be regarded as a traditional winery, but I hope we will always be a winery that respects and uses the best of tradition.
What percentage of your wine is sold online, and what percentage is sold at the winery and club together? That will help frame my next question.
But online, very small percent.
Still small.
Oh, so small. We are watching it, under 10%, 5%. It's really small. But, let's talk again in 3 years. It's going to be huge. But wine club, that's a very important part of who we are. It's sort of this, and I'd say over 30. Is it a third?
I thought maybe it was,
I think it's more than.
Is it more than a third?
Yeah,
Okay.
For 60% of, and growing, of our sales are direct to consumer. And most of that is wine club. So it's a huge part of, wine club is a huge part of who we are.
And you sound like smart marketers in the wine business, that's for sure, trying to lead the cutting edge. As you start to grow into online consumers where they don't have the chance to drive up 29 and swing into, meet Bunny Fufu, what do you wish you knew about your online consumer?
Oh. Yeah, well, their email address. Yeah. Give me an email address, I can do so much.
Before that?
Before that, yeah. So, we want to know everything we can. We want to know where they live. We want to know their buying pattern. We want to know, give us their gender. We can stereotype with the best of them. Give us as much information as we can get, and we'll build a model around that person. I mean, we want to know their income. We want to know what kind of luxury products do they use. I mean, how do we co-brand? Do they join other clubs? We know that there are people out there who love good wine, but who are not wine club. They don't want to join a wine club. They don't want to have that tie. So we created this program called Online Rewards. So that's where, if you want to shop online and you don't want to be part of a club, we got something for you. So you can you buy, and then you meet a threshold at $600 in the calendar year, then you get 5% off. If you buy a lot of wine, if you're at $2,000 in the calendar year, you get 10% off. So I mean, it's we're trying to figure out. I mean, it's so much of our world is about customization. Mm-hmm. So the more and this digital world allows us to do that. So the more we can know about who they are, I can't think of anything I wouldn't want to know.
Yeah, basically what they like, so we can show them what they like.
Yeah.
Hi, you just mentioned about co-branding, and I actually came to your winery first time through the Lexus Club. Can you tell us more about who you partner with, how you select the partnership, and how is that working for your wineries?
So the question, who else are we involved with? It's sort of evolving. I don't. We've done, obviously with Lexus, we've done some, luxury brands are really natural for us. We're doing some wedding things with Tiffany now.
We're trying to get more into the wedding market, especially people with their last name Hall. They really like partnering with using us for their wedding wine.
Yeah.
I thought we did something with American Express.
We have done things with American Express.
Sort of what you could luxury brands that you could think of.
Yeah, and we're always looking. I mean, we have a team that's sort of part of one of their responsibilities, and we have one guy whose job is to sort of look around and see who can we work with. Yeah. Well, obviously Tesla. Yeah, we have the Tesla charging station. I think you mentioned that. Mm-hmm. So we've been doing some things with Tesla.
Would you mind introducing what we're pouring today?
Yeah. Should I do this?
Sure.
Okay. So, let me see. We'll start with what I was drinking. That's the Sauvignon Blanc. This is under the Hall brand. So Hall is all the Bordeaux varietals. So that would be a Sauvignon Blanc for the white. And this is the only wine in our portfolio between Hall and Walt that's seasonal oak. It is 100% Sauv Blanc. What I think is special about this is something that our team experimented with and came to, and that is that we leave this juice on the lees. And so a Sauvignon Blanc should be bright and have nice acid and have these, I think, melon qualities and grapefruit on the nose. We expect that. But when it's not great, it's sort of be a little green, or it's going to be thin mid-palate. And so if you leave this on the lees, you can get this sort of lusciousness mid-palate. And I think they've just done a beautiful job, and obviously I like it because that's what I poured for myself today. To start with. Then the Pinot Noir is the Gaps Crown.
I think we're pouring the Gaps Crown.
Yeah. So the Gaps Crown is under the Walt label. This comes from over towards the coast in Sonoma. It's a wine that has sort of sort of raspberry jammy, I think, on the nose. The palate has, I would say, some sort of earthy mushroom quality to it. It's got nice acid in it. But what distinguishes, I think, in particular this wine for us in our portfolio is it's a very robust wine. I mean, it's a really sort of more angular, I think, in terms of its structure. Its growing climate is severe in the sense it's got very, very strong winds, in that area, and so these are very, very hardy grapes, and it's reflected in the wine that's produced from them. The 2 cabs we have are the Kerr.
3 cabs, actually.
3 cabs? We have 3 cabs?
Yeah.
Boy, you guys are
Valley.
great. Thank you. Okay, so,
Napa
the Napa Cab. Napa Cab, 2013, is very sort of dark, inky color. This is the wine we make the most of, maybe the best value in the portfolio, because that's our wine that most people get to know us through. So we try to really load in wonderful fruit in here, and then hope people come back and join the club and buy more wine and just do just what Daniel did. And so it has this sort of chocolatey quality to it, I think, in the taste. It's aged something under 20 months, I think about 18 months in French oak. By the way, we only use French oak. That's part of, we were talking earlier about cutting corners. I mean, I think we really looked at trying other oaks, but there's just nothing for us that compares to French oak. There's that subtlety about it that just is wonderful. So so this is likewise aged in French oak. So we designed this wine to be drunk right now. Robert Parker thinks it's going to be fabulous in 20 years. He says it's good now, but he says he thinks it could go 20 years. I think in 20 years it's going to be hard to find a bottle of it. I don't know. And then we have Kerr, French for heart. Comes from the heart of the valley, which is St. Helena, mostly from our vineyard right by the St. Helena winery called Bergfeld. So since this is a really warm part of Napa Valley, warm climate is going to produce grapes that aren't as fruit forward, although you will get some black fruit in here. It is sort of more, not as much fruit and a little more sort of mocha quality for me on that taste, bigger wine. And then finally the Kathryn Hall, which to begin with has a very nice name, comes in part from the vineyard where our house is, our family house is, and it is it's a wonderful wine. Not to go back to scores, but I just have to say, so Parker pre-rated this in barrel at 98 to 100, so this really could be our 3rd 100-point wine, but anyway, it is what it is, and I think it's beautiful. Here's you will try it today, and those of you who are seeing us later, sorry, you just have to come to the winery and try it. But it's a very big wine. It's very dense. It's got lots of dark fruit in it. It's huge. It's very young at 2013, so it's got this sort of baby fat that makes it very appealing. And it's luscious. But the challenge is going to be to wait, because it really is going to be better in 4, 5, or longer years. But it is drinking so beautifully now that it's very tempting.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much.
Oh, thank
really
you.
Appreciate you guys making it out
Yes,
here.
thank you. This was really fun.
Okay, good.